Hello race fans, my name is Taylor and welcome to my podcast called Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. This time we're talking about the upcoming race at Atlanta Motor Speedway with the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500, the first of two races at Atlanta Motor Speedway this season. Before we start, I want to preface this by saying the audio is going to be a little funky again. You might hear a car in the background or you might hear some wind. I'm not in the normal setup, but I also wanted to make sure I was getting content out, so I apologize for the audio. That aside, as always, let's back it up and close with some final thoughts on the NASCAR 500, last weekend's race at Phoenix. Asking, was it a good race? I'm going to refer back to Jeff Gluck's poll that he did. 63.6% of you said yes it was, which isn't overwhelming, but it's better than 50%. And Jeff Gluck's poll, this ranks 10th out of 11 of the Phoenix race polls that he has done, ranking it the second lowest next to the Phoenix playoff race, I believe, last year. The internet fan base just did not care for this race that much, and it seems the TV ratings also showed that the viewers didn't care for this race either. NASCAR was the second most watched sport last weekend behind the PGA Players Tournament for golf. 3.86 million tuned into the race, and the race received a rating of 2.30, which is down from last year's Phoenix race of 2.7 with 4.58 million views, very much down. And before that, the race rating was 2.9 with 4.8 million views. We have seen a steep decline in viewership. This race is just, I don't know. I'm pretty concerned with how things have shown off with the ratings. We're slowly declining, like I said. Despite all the NASCAR hype, even though NASCAR's been in the news more, I'm seeing more people talk about it, more people hear about it, especially, everything with Bubba Wallace last year that came up in the news, so people have tuned into NASCAR. But despite all that, we are not seeing the ratings show that. And I say hype because I know more people are discussing the sport, but the ratings are going down. Let's talk about other disappointing things with team fines. I know this is the segue I bring in every week, but, there's just multiple disappointments here to start off with. Teams getting a $10,000 fine, William Byron, Kyle Busch, and Kurt Busch with lug nut fines, one lug nut missing on their car. Then we move into the worst part of the fines, the cars that are getting a crew chief ejection because there was two or more lug nuts missing from the car. Very unsafe. Brad Keselowski and Daniel Suarez. So teams for this weekend will be looking a bit different due to fines and because, like I said, the crew chief will be ejected from those two teams of Keselowski and Suarez. But teams will also be looking different for different reasons because paint schemes on the cars are going to be looking a little fresher than last weekend. Let's go down the list here from the 00 all the way to the highest number of paint schemes I want to look at. We will go out of order a little bit at some of them, but for the most part, they'll be in order. So let's start with the 00 of Quinn Houff with another sweet paint scheme this weekend for the 8-Ball Chocolate Whiskey brand and product. Looking super cool. Last weekend, he had a pretty cool Mountains paint scheme on the side of his car for Mountain Lock. Pretty nifty schemes from him so far. Some teams I think they should take note of Quinn Houff's cars because they've been looking real good. Next car, Brad Keselowski in a different look this race as he was last weekend. For the Auto Trader paint scheme, lots of orange on these cars this year. I don't know what it is with orange and purple. I know I'm going to talk about another orange and purple car in a few minutes, but orange is a color. Coming back. I like the orange on the cars. Next car we got to talk about more in depth is the Corey LaJoie representing the Folds of Honor company on his car. Notable because, one, this is the name of the race, the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500, and also take a look at the logo. It's an NFL logo on there. The NFL Alumni Association will be representing the car this weekend as they are integrating their efforts with the Folds of Honor Children's Fund to support scholarship opportunities for veterans and their families. Looking at that pretty red, white, and blue paint scheme, my favorite part of this scheme is the hood of the car right here, the big NFLA logo on the top, on the front. You cannot miss it. LaJoie is a part of many other charitable causes and does great work to raise money for those causes, so pretty perfect match here. All those efforts, joining Corey LaJoie and his team. I'm excited to see what else they do this season. He has, I know I talked about this a few podcasts ago with his paint schemes, but he always has to me the most interesting paint schemes. So excited to see this one on the car. A very noticeable one, like I said, cannot miss it on the track. Another new look comes from the 8 car of Tyler Reddick with the Alsco paint scheme on the car as they continue their partnership of 5 years now into the season. This will be the primary sponsor for him for multiple events this year. We're going to move to the 12 car just very quickly. I love this paint scheme with the body armor, all the red on the car. I love red on the car for Ryan Blaney. One of my favorites. Like I said, we're quickly moving on. Let's look at the 20 of Christopher Bell with a new look for the Sirius XM car design. Something very different. Usually we see Bell in red cars, as I talked about Ryan Blaney's red paints. Can we see him in red cars a lot, even back to Xfinity and trucks? Another car I'm going to have issues finding on the track because it's just not the normal Bell look. A lot of the JGRs this year not with normal looks. But an interesting one from Christopher Bell. We also got to take a peek at the 33 car of Austin Cindric this weekend. Yes, he is racing in Cups this weekend. I'm not bouncing it to Xfinity. This is Cups. We will talk about him in the lineup and where he is when we line up the field. But this yellow and blue with a little splash of red Pertec paint scheme for this weekend with a design reminiscent of Logano's car. Actually, I'll show you them side by side. They're exactly the same thing, just minus the colors and the sponsor on the car. I'm excited to see what this car can do. I'm excited to see what Austin Cindric can do in the Cup Series. He's been in a Cup race before. It's going to be great to see him kind of test the waters as the Cup car setups are different than the Xfinity car setups. And we also know that Cindric will be moving to a Cup car, the 21, next season, 2022. You also watch the Xfinity race too on Saturday just to see how Austin Cindric does, see how he will line up and how well he will do on Sunday. Now I'm going to go out of order real quick to look at the 42 of Ross Chastain in a new paint scheme for the Tubi paint scheme. It's a streaming service for free TVs and movies. Another orange and purple car. Like I said, the theme of the year. This one has actually done well, though there's some this season I have been kind of iffy on. This orange and purple kind of fade look paint scheme looks good to me. Tubi will sponsor Chastain for this race and Kurt Busch, his teammate, next month at Richmond, according to this tweet by Bob Pockrass. Finally, the last two cars I want to look at are a little nutty. Hate the segue so much, and I know I do with most of mine that I say, but the 37 of Ryan Preece will be with a Planters Peanut paint scheme, and the 38 of Anthony Alfredo with a Georgia Peanuts paint scheme. So Fast Pasta, Anthony Alfredo will now be Fast Peanut this weekend, I guess. No clue how these teams coordinated this, or if they did. I'm pretty sure they did not. It's just how the schemes and sponsorship lined up. But it will be a battle of the peanuts this weekend, I guess, between Front Row Motorsports and JTD Doherty. I'm very eager to see how those cars will race on the track, through the field. Speaking of that, these cars will be battling it out in the field. So now let's line up the field and take a look at where they will be starting the battle from. Mentioning the Trucks and Xfinity Series race real quick, we'll have a few Cup drivers racing in those series this weekend. We normally do, but we haven't seen these particular ones in a little bit. Starting with Xfinity, Martin Truex Jr. will be racing in place of Kyle Busch this weekend at Atlanta because Kyle now has to go to Bristol early to race in the late model cars, dirts. There's a race happening actually this week at Bristol for some of those drivers. They chose to enter a race, go in early, test the dirt, see how they can do for the Cup Series. Very smart. We'll talk about how those drivers did during the Bristol pre-race podcast, but he will be there this weekend, so Martin Truex Jr. is filling in the spot in the number 54 for Joe Gibbs Racing. Moving on to trucks, then Kyle Busch will be back in the 51 for Kyle Busch Motorsports, and then Ross Chastain in the 44 for Nice Motorsports will also be in the trucks this weekend at Atlanta. Now let's line up the Cup field. Denny Hamlin will be in the lead to green this weekend with teammate and last week's winner, Martin Truex Jr. right beside him. Third and fourth is a Penske row with Logano and Keselowski, and behind them is a Hendrick row with Elliott and Larson in fifth and sixth. Very dominant teams at the front of the field, no surprise there. Finishing out the top 10 is Harvick, Bell, Byron, and Blaney. Other notable starting positions, Stenhouse in 12th after peaking in and out of the top 10 for the past 3 races now. He will have another good shot at being in the top 10 this weekend at Atlanta. The other Hendrick car of Alex Bowman will be starting back in 14th. I'm hoping he can have a better week. I'm hoping he can be with his teammates. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but there's the hope. That's the hope. Bubba Wallace, after a fatal call last week and cost him a top 10 spot, will be starting back in 15th. Hopefully, bearing in mind that he does not have issues with the car, will be back in the top 10. Second to last, I want to mention Kyle Busch starting all the way back in 19th after an uncontrolled tire penalty, I guess, happened at the race last weekend. He didn't serve his penalty in time, in I guess a timely fashion, and lost him a lot of spots on the track. He didn't finish well, and now he's starting all the way back of the field in 19th. Finally, let's talk about Austin Cindric. I told y'all he was going to be racing this weekend in the 33 car for Penske. He's starting at the tail end, and he's going to race his way to the front. I have a feeling that's not where he's going to stay, so watch out for Austin Cindric this weekend, starting at the rear of the field. Now that the field is set, let's talk some numbers. I'm going to start by talking about the race and track layout. Atlanta Motor Speedway is a 1.5-mile track. This race will be 500 miles in a 325-lap race. Stage 1 lasts 105 laps, as well as Stage 2 lasting the same amount, 105 laps. The final stage will last 115 laps. There will be a competition caution in Stage 1, as well for the drivers to adjust their cars because of no practice or qualifying. Now we know the race length, we know the field, now we have to line up the odds of the track, taking into account the race history, and then discuss how it lines up with our current drivers, and then I'll talk from there about a race-winning pick. Now I try to do track stats and race stats, but because Atlanta has gone back and forth between 1 race and 2 races this year, I'm just going to look at overall track statistics, not single races, overall track. So let's discuss those here. The last driver to win at this track was Kevin Harvick, all the way in 2020. Seems like a long time ago, I know. The driver with the most wins at this track is also Kevin Harvick with 3 wins, tied with Kurt Busch for 3 wins. One of those wins came from an all-star race. The active driver with the best average finish at this track is not Kevin Harvick. It is Chase Elliott with a round and averaging finishing position of 10th. The team with the most track wins is Hendrick Motorsports with 14, and the manufacturer with the most wins, no surprise here, Chevrolet with 41, including point and non-point races, at least the ones, that's what I counted, 41 wins. More stats to throw out here to help determine a winner. The most recent teams to have win here come from Penske and Stewart-Haas, all the way back and forth since 2017. Hendrick has not won at this track since 2016. They have come close, though. Speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, they hold the track record for the most runner-up finishes, the most top 5 and top 10 finishes. With those top 10 finishes, Chase Elliott, by the way, has never finished outside the top 10 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, except for 2019, where he would have, except he got damage on the nose of the car. He came into pit road. An extended stay cost him a lot of spots. It was a very back-and-forth race for him. Besides Hendrick Motorsports, Kevin Harvick has some of the best average finishes on this track. This is in his top 3 of best average finishes in his career at certain tracks. I think this is number 3 for him. Here's my logic. Let's talk some logic. The 2 drivers statistically that have the best chances at winning here are Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick, though recently other teams have showed success at the track. I cannot say that Harvick will win this race after an on and off season this year. Actually, Harvick has not led more than 17 laps this season, which is rare for him, and all those laps came out of the Daytona 500. Even though he started on the pole for the Pennzoil 400, he did not lead the lead lap at all, and like I said, none after that. My next option is Chase Elliott, who has the best finishing average of all the drivers after 5 starts here at the track. Hendrick has also had some pretty impressive records like I showed here. If I had to choose any driver tentatively, it would have to be Chase Elliott to win this race, but here are my concerns with this. Hendrick Motorsports seems to dig themselves into many ditches during the races, mostly due to pit road issues. If Elliott is mistake-free, though, and he is not sent to the rear, I think this race is his. Larson could also be a factor, too. We have to see him close out the races, but again, if he goes mistake-free, I think Larson could also be a potential. He does have the second best average finish at this track. Chase Elliott has the first. It's a Hendrick Motorsports world pretty much at this track. Larson could potentially do it, but I gotta stick with my man Chase Elliott. My backup driver for this race, however, if Elliott can't get this done and if Hendrick Motorsports has some mistakes, would have to be Brad Keselowski, who won this race in 2017 and 2019, and who has the 4th best averaging finish at this track of all active drivers. So my main man, Chase Elliott, backup pick, Brad Keselowski. I'm feeling pretty good about that. But let me know in the comments below your race pick. And with that, this podcast has come to a close. Thank you all so much for listening to yet another episode of Above the Yellow Line, the podcast where we talk about all the updates, theories, news, recaps, and more of the NASCAR Cup Series. Make sure to tune in to Fox at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday for the Folds of Honor QuikTrip 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway to see how your favorite drivers do. If you are not able to watch the race, make sure you check out my Twitter account linked in the description below for a lap-by-lap race coverage, and also follow me for more daily racing content. Look at the description below for more racing content as well. Check out the links there. Be sure to also take a look at this week's NASCAR updates video that I have linked right here for you, and subscribe to my channel to see the videos as they come up for important NASCAR updates. Thank you all again. Until next time, I'll see ya.